Hello everybody and welcome to another exciting video from us here at Manly Battleships. I'm Mr. Panda.
And I'm Roxstar.
And we're here to talk to you about a show that you need to reconnect with. Many years ago, a free online series was started, written and produced and starring Felicia Day, your favorite nerdy
gamer
female actress. I don't know. The show is called The Guild. And it's all about these people who are in an MMO and have to then deal with each other in real life. Now, this came out at the late 2000s and ran 6 full seasons. And from my understanding, the whole thing, I kind of fell off the wagon a little bit around season 2 or 3. But the whole thing at one point was at least free, correct?
Yes, at one point.
So you might be wondering why we're talking about this series that's years old, was always available for free. Well, it's on Netflix right now, and that gives a really great opportunity for mainstream audiences and people like you who may have missed out on it because I'm old.
We're old. We're both old.
You might have missed out on it, so here's a reminder as to why you might be interested in this series. It's not particularly long. It runs, I think, tops on a season is like an hour and a half of actual screen time.
Yeah,
thereabouts.
something like that.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Averages out. And there's only 6 of them. So it's like, yeah, watching a couple really long anime episodes, which you're going to do anyway.
The best part about the seasons on Netflix is a season is an episode.
Yeah.
So you watch a full episode, that's your whole season right there.
Yeah, they break it. I forgot. Yeah, they break it down into like a movie format. Mm-hmm. Like the reverse of what they did with Hateful Eight. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about this series, what it offers, and what's going on, especially some of the characters. Felicia Day, in addition to writing and starting this, and potentially, though she has at least lip service denied this, this show might have actually inspired the creation of Dr. Horrible Sing-Along the blog. And the show starts off with Felicia Day's character, Codex, just sitting in front of her webcam, recording like a blog, a journal entry. That's the Kicks thing. You're going to have, like, I think there's like about one of those per every mini episode that they used to have. Yeah. That's the whole, setting things up, basically giving you a little snippet of what's actually going to happen in the narrative, and then they go into it. So I guess it's basically retrospective in that sense. The entire premise of the show begins because Felicia Day's character accidentally flirts with one of her guild members.
Yes.
To the point where he shows up in real life thinking that
Stalker.
There's stuff going on. So it's like, yeah, I'm going to move in with you.
Yeah, he literally, the best part about this is he literally stalks her, cyber stalks her, finds out her address, finds out all this weird stuff about her, and then just goes, hey, I'm moving in. Here's my suitcase. Here's my thing. Where am I going to sleep tonight? Hopefully with you, and does all these sexual innuendos because she did a winky face instead of just a regular smiley face.
I mean, like, in fairness to Zabu being the character, I mean, according to the other guild members, they were definitely like flirting with each other over the course of several months, and just apparently unconscious. That being said, Cyberstock moves in, and this creates a panic moment for this long-standing guild that plays the MMO just entitled The Game.
I think
I lost.
I think the whole reason for calling it that is because it seems very heavily inspired off of World of Warcraft, which I know at the time Felicia Day was actually addicted to. So this was kind of like, I don't know, getting out her addiction and how it's like to be addicted to a MMO, a subscription-based MMO at the time. So it's a very interesting, funny look at gamers' life through her eyes.
Yeah, and the antisocial behaviors that frequently circle that kind of environment. Incidentally, not saying that all gamers, particular MMOs, are faced with these problems. However, at the time, it was really interesting to see people who are at least reputed to mostly interact with each other through the computer. I mean, that was a whole new thing when the internet first came out, and then MMOs became a thing, and then, now we can not only talk, we can engage in social activities. This is much better than MSN Gaming Zone. I hated MSN Gaming Zone.
That being said, what ends up happening is she goes to her guild members for help. They set up a real-life meeting because they're a local guild.
At Cheesy Beards.
And they end up all meeting up in real life. And essentially, from there on, all the way through season 6. It's just insanity and comedy and all this other kind of drama and stuff happens after that.
You're going to have to fact check me here on some of their roles. So we have Codex, who's basically like a sorceress.
No, she's the priest.
She's a priest.
She's the priest. She's the healer.
I don't play World of Warcraft.
Well, I don't either, but I play Diablo, so I kind of...
Oh, okay, fair enough. Well, so have I. Well, they don't have necromancers, darn it.
No.
Zabu is another spell wielder.
I think Zabu is a spell wielder, but he's like the attack one, so he might be the sorcerer.
He could be.
Right.
Why do I not remember? I have no idea. We're also introduced to various other characters and literally characters as well as figuratively. The guild leader is Vork.
Yes.
I don't remember what he does. He's a tank?
He's a warrior.
Yeah, okay. Like a tank.
Yeah, he's the tank.
Then we also have Tinkerbella,
who is just usually
the stereotypical pretty Asian who is playing through the screen and...
Oh, the one that literally... my favorite part about her is that she just goes through guys, and she doesn't even refer to them. It's a very kind of sexist way to look at it.
I mean, if you can get people to buy stuff off your Amazon wish list, who am I to judge you?
I mean...
I don't think they had Amazon wish lists when that was a thing. Well, maybe they did. I don't know.
Well, we have Blades, who's the teenager.
Yeah.
The teenager. Assassin, yeah. He's a smart elf.
And a douche.
Yeah, and the douche. And then you have Clara. I always loved Clara because she is the embodiment of the worst mother ever who just neglects her kids and her husband to play the game 24/7.
You guys ever watch Archer? It's kind of like Pam if Pam was a mom instead of a secretary.
I don't get that reference.
Well, it's unfortunate. Someone out there might. So yeah, she's the worst mom ever. Her kids play with blenders. Her husband is disengaged most of the time, but he becomes kind of important later on, at least for part of a season. And by important, I mean he shows up a little bit more.
A little bit more, yeah.
Oh, and at one point does end up starting to play with them briefly by the monk here, Mr. Wiggly. There are a couple other character highlights that would be interesting to talk about. We won't go too deeply into it because we still want you to watch the show. But you have characters like Fox, who will come up in, I think, the end of Season 2 into Season 3, who is a rival guild leader and is played by Will Wheaton. Will Wheaton.
Why do you have to... Will Wheaton. Why do you have to...
Will Wheaton.
No. You need to stop. I mean, I like his character, okay?
I thought he played it very well.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah,
that is true.
And there's various entanglements, both between the guilds as well as some of the members of those guilds. We won't spoil that for you. Other interesting characters might be... God, what is her name? Riley. Riley, who goes from being the roommate / F-buddy of the guy that Codex has a crush on at one point to being the Zabu's something.
Zabu's abusive
Dom? I don't know.
It's a very weird relationship with Zabu.
And then she comes crashing through the wall as bisexual representation in the realm of online video series. So you got to give them credit somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
Even if it's really compressed and suddenly really weird. Especially if you were watching this back in like 2008. Yeah, 2008.
That's when that season came out, actually. When she came out of the closet, it was 2008.
Riley's played by Michelle Boyd, who has a lot of other bit appearances in TV. And actually, in The Orville. She shows up in an episode of The Orville, too. I forgot about that.
Who is she in The Orville?
Lieutenant something with a D.
That is the greatest name in the world.
Well, there's 6 seasons, and what we can do is give you a brief run through, like, couple sentence summaries of what's going on in each particular season. Maybe talk a little bit about what kind of challenges everyone's facing. We can do that. Get you hooked, if you will. Season 1 is all about these people coming together to meet in person for the first time. Now, they do have a history of interaction with each other. They don't really go into like their nitty-gritty backgrounds, but they come into this in-person relationship.
I think they set up the characters well enough that when you first meet them, you already kind of have the sense of who that person is going to be in the group, and then they kind of just build it from there, which I think is actually really, like, you don't really need to know because you know that they've been playing for years. But there is a different dynamic from playing with somebody through the screen and just listening to them talk about the game and maybe other things in personal life to, hey, I'm meeting you in real life and now we are going to hang out outside of the video game.
And it feels very real the way that it's the whole scene plays out, because you have like people like, for example, Vork, who is their guild leader and is like very meticulous in how he presents everything through guild management. Then you find out that he is not only impecunious, I'm sorry, poor for you peasants.
He is a hoarder. He is very, very cheap on top of that. He
brings a package of cheese slices to the restaurant. Just so people don't have to pay $1 to get a cheeseburger. It offers to sell it to them for 25 cents. A slice.
And I think the best part about it is everybody has their own peculiarity,
Piccadilly, idiosyncrasy, flaws of character.
You know, it does feel a little sitcom-y at first, but at the same time, you can almost believe, because honestly, when you're playing in an MMO, you are interacting with you're interacting with the whole world. So of course you're going to get people who are like extremely different from who you are.
Yeah, if anything, I thought the only unrealistic part of the whole setup was like, there's people who just set up local guilds without ever meeting each other.
Yeah,
this isn't Pokemon Go. I mean, I guess I believe it. It just seemed, that's like the one thing that just stood out to me as like, well, that's odd. But I mean, if it wasn't that way, then they couldn't exactly
meet up. Yeah, not easily. And
the whole premise of the show just goes away.
I kind of just like suspension of disbelief there.
Well, yeah, I didn't say it stuck with me. I just said that was the thing. I was like, that's the fantastic element that allows the show to happen. There you go.
Right. So that being said, the whole first season is just
them getting used to each other.
Exactly. It's just them getting used to each other. Codex trying to get Zabu out of the house and that kind of stuff, and him
because he sticks there. Oh, do we meet his mom in the first season?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, Zabu's mom. I can't remember her name.
The problem is they do say her name like once.
Yeah.
In like I think season 4, but everybody keeps referring to her as Mrs. Zabu. Yeah. So that's exactly the thing that doesn't help. And we're referring to them to their code names because that's what's used more often. Yeah. But that's just their code names in the game. They have other real names.
And Zabu's mom really starts becoming more of a thing, I would say, but in season 2.
I don't think it's season 2 that you're thinking of. I think it's season 3.
Season 3. Oh, well, I'm not talking about the wedding. I was talking about the breakdown of personal relationships that starts happening in season 2. You have, Codex going and looking for a crush. You got Zabu getting involved with somebody.
Yeah,
not Codex. If you want to think of it in terms of step progression, in the first season, they're just meeting up and getting used to each other. But because of that interaction, what I think that leads into is what they're dealing with in season 2, which is relationship bonding outside of that. You have Codex's initial rejection of Zabu, so they start looking elsewhere. Zabu wants to become a man and ends up going out and hanging with Vork for a while. Yeah. And and then Codex meets a really cute stunt guy in her apartment complex and starts crushing on him, and then Zabu's trying to be the supportive friend.
No, the supportive friend
comes later. But that's the start of it.
Yeah.
Another thing that happens in season 2 is the dynamic that we talked about with Tinkerballa affects Blades within the guild. So it's like, oh yeah, I'm totally gonna get with her. And then she just racks up a bunch of stuff on credit cards, and then he has to get a job. Oh no. Catfished.
So then...
I guess that's not technically catfishing, but still.
So then he takes a very extreme method of revenge against her, which we won't spoil, because it is one of those, wow, I wasn't expecting that. But he takes a very extreme form, which then really breaks down that relationship, between the two of them.
And sets up for Season 3. We open Season 3, and they're getting an expansion to the game, and they get in line, and then a rival guild full of bullies comes and cuts in line with clever deception. And Tinkerballa basically decides to go off on her own and join that other guild. Mm-hmm. And then Vork goes through an existential crisis.
Of leadership.
And Codex has to lead the guild on her own, which goes exactly how you might expect. Because it's also where we first get introduced to Fox, who is the leader of the... By the way, that's Fox like Guy Fawkes, not Fox. Like Yif Fox.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that becomes relevant later, too.
No!
Speaking of which, one of the reasons it doesn't work as Codex as a leader, because I really relate to Codex. She's neurotic, she's anxiety-filled, and she's a really, really shy person, which actually explains a lot about why I like her. But that's exactly who she is. She's neurotic, she's anxiety-filled, and is not a great people person. So she doesn't always... She tries to be as nice as she can, which often gets her pushed around, and she doesn't always have the right words to say, which doesn't make her for a good leader. I don't think.
Every single season, she's learning something new about herself. In Season 4, it turns into trying to explore that interpersonal relationship thing again, where she decides to get it on with somebody, whom we won't name immediately, because it's a surprise at the end of the previous season. Mm-hmm. It's also where Vork gets entangled in the potential matrimonial situation, because he really wants to get good at the game. He wants to get good at the game so good that he gets to be the one that designs and builds the guild hall, courtesy of the new expansion. So, in order to have ultimate advisory committee to taking over the game...
I don't think it's really getting good. I think it's more of like being rich.
It's getting good.
It's being rich.
I mean, you could argue that's good.
I mean, it's different.
Economically gaming the system.
So it's about money. It's about making sure he has the most money to be able to buy the guild house, which is fairly interesting by the end of it.
Yeah, and he finds someone to give him economic advice, and then decides that needs to be a thing forever.
Well,
and it goes exactly how you'll expect.
To be fair, it backfired because he really didn't want what ended up happening.
Well, that's true, but that's not the point. We actually see this is it's cool because man, I don't know how much I really want to spoil here, but like for example, other things that happen in this season, the conflict between Zabu and his overreaching mom, which I thought was like one of the other really cool things that was written into the show, was like that that awkward feeling of you have a younger adult, the equivalent of a millennial, who still has this, like, I won't say that he's dependent on her, but she's dependent on him. There's this dependency thing going on. And it's like, they get a resolution in this season. Just as Vork goes through these...
Difficult changes. And that sets him up for his own resolution later on in the final season. Yeah.
Which I'm only just now thinking about is actually really cool. So if you have the opportunity to kind of like watch at least season 4 to 6 back to back, that would probably be ideal.
I was gonna say it is actually very well written. I feel this whole show, especially once we get to like season 5. Season 5 is convention life.
Oh, yeah. So, if you wanted to know where the progression was going, natural escalation. So, season 5 almost entirely takes place... It does entirely take place at the convention.
It takes entirely at the convention. And there are some extreme things that would never happen at a convention. But a lot of the other things is very, like... If you've been to a convention and you've been there with your friends, you can relate to at least some of this. It is so... well written, and it feels like they wrote it from experience.
Yeah.
That's also the season where you'll see a lot of cameos.
It's true.
It's very cameo filled. It's actually really, really nice to see some of the cameos that go in there, like people you wouldn't.
Especially because I had skipped these last couple seasons when it was first actually running. Like I didn't know that said person was in that, but that's really cool.
Mm-hmm. So we won't spoil who makes cameos. But
you'll enjoy them when they show up.
You will enjoy them. All the cameos are really good.
And that leads into Season 6, the final season. And what, might you ask, happens then? Well, you go from being an isolated player to a player who interacts with their guild. You start reaching out. You finally go to a con. What's the next logical step? The fan becomes the worker. So Codex ends up getting a job working for the game.
At first she thinks it's a dream job. But
as anyone who can tell you has ever done professional work in the field of nerddom, boy, are you in for a surprise.
She finds out it is more stressful than you can imagine. And it doesn't help that her guild seems to be troublesome in that area, too.
Oh, yeah, it's like, oh, give me the access codes.
So,
I want to see the new expansion.
Everybody seems to get this interesting character dynamic. Everybody gets good screen time at the end. Like Codex and even Clara.
Yeah, I thought that was one of the strongest aspects of the show, especially in wrap-up, was that none of them felt like they were left hanging. Like no one didn't go through character changes.
Yes.
If there is one that I feel like meh about, it would be Tinkerballa.
See, I felt that her character growth was fine because she ends up...
It felt very sudden and weird.
Really? I felt like that was the logical step to go with her. The one that I felt...
I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't foreseeable from a narrative perspective. I'm just saying...
The one I felt didn't learn anything was Clara.
Yes, well, that's true. But she did hang out with her husband more.
Yeah, but I don't think it was out of love for her husband either.
Maybe that's the lesson. Some people don't change.
I guess. That being said, overall, what do you feel about this?
I'm glad I finally got a chance to finish the guild. I liked it so much that I agreed to do this video with Roxstar. So, it's something that's only not that old. It's certainly not so old that it wouldn't be enjoyable for any of you. It will be very fun to reacquaint yourself with people like Felicia Day, Will Wheaton, and a lot of the other actors who are characters in the show. It's not very long. It won't consume a whole lot of your time. You can binge watch it in maybe 2-3 sessions at the most.
I mean, you'll find some things outdated. Like, I know they reference a lot of the technology that's a little outdated. But, that being said, everything else feels pretty real to this time. It's still applicable to now.
Yeah, like, there's... Even though...
Like, the relationships and the plot and that kind of stuff is a little bit more relatable. Even if, like, the technology and other things that they talk about feel a little outdated in some of the references. But, like... The actual human interaction.
Yeah, there's like a CRT monitor. You guys don't know what that is.
But that's Vork. Vork's the cheap one.
Fair enough.
That's why. That being said, I don't know. I enjoyed the guild. I had only ever watched the 2 music videos that they had done. There's two music videos. There's one called Do You Want to Date My Avatar, where they're all in their characters' clothes. And there's the other one with Codex and Zabu, where Zabu's trying to convince her to go play. And I believe those were like between season 2 and 3.
Oh, that reminds me. The dynamic between Zabu and Codex, how that gets resolved, I actually enjoyed that very much.
I enjoyed that too.
That was just a weird... an unexpected path to go down for me.
Right.
And I really appreciated that, because it's like... It's so frequently there's just particular forms that a lot of these stories take, and this one was, while not unforeseeable, was unusual.
It's not a cliche, is what I think you're trying to say.
Yeah,
like there's
true.
A lot of things where you'll watch it and you're like, oh well, this is what's going to happen because it's cliche and everyone does it. And then this show will sometimes surprise you with the way they take certain relationships and where they take the human interaction that they're... Because this is really like a slice of life when it comes to gamers, I feel. With exaggerated scenarios, grant you, but it's like a slice of life show for me.
On a completely unrelated tangent. No, it's partly related, but it's a tangent anyway. We've talked about a couple videos where, like, I'm someone who uses narrative forms to, like, induct what's going to happen. I just realized I'm that one guy from Lady in the Water.
Oh, God.
Which is a terrible movie, by the way. Just don't watch that.
You know, I still haven't watched it, and I'm not planning to never.
Well, I guess you'll have to.
What? Why?
I don't know.
You just told them not
Things
to watch
Roxstar
it.
has never seen. Lady in the Water. The Village. I mean, you've seen The Village, I assume.
No.
You haven't?
Okay, so what we're going to do is, if you want me to watch something to review that maybe we've mentioned that I haven't watched, or something you think
I've been trying to convince her to do her own series for a while where she just watches things where I'm like, what do you mean you haven't seen that?
Put it down in the comment section.
Did you ever watch the Transformers movies?
No.
See what I have to work with? All right. Well, that's it. Hopefully we've convinced you that it's time to fire up Netflix or I think it's still on YouTube, actually.
I don't know about YouTube, but I know it's definitely on Netflix because that's how we watched it.
So, get on out there, watch
The Guild.
Enjoy, and we'll see you on Monday. Have a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.